I was actually born and raised on the property. When my folks moved out here in '73, this was considered the undesirable area. Highway 101 was sort of the proverbial tracks, and west of 101 was sort of the undesirable area. In fact, I think my parents' first real estate agent quit on them. They said, if you guys are adamant about living west of 101, that there was probably somebody better suited to represent you. So when we moved out here in '73 or '72, it was farmland. There was some old vine vineyards planted in between. Cecil Deloche just moved out onto our road. And him and my father planted our Gewürztraminer in '76. That was sort of our lifestyle. My dad never made wine with it. And he sold his grapes to Deloche for 28 years. He had some Gewürztraminer in the front and some Zin in the back. And it was just sort of a little more than a hobby, my dad called it. It basically paid his property taxes. So I was born and raised here. When we grew up, it didn't look anything like this. I mean, in fact, right where the camera is at, there was a big dirt pile where my brother and I used to throw dirt claws at each other. That was our form of entertainment back in the, you know. And so none of us were really thinking that we were going to make wine or make this sort of a lifestyle or a career. That is until I left for college, and I remember telling my mom, I remember where I was standing, I said, I'm never coming home to Sonoma County, this place is boring. And I went off to college, and then I went to San Francisco, which is sort of the evolutionary trail that people our age at the time when I was 24, I found myself in the city, and I was loving the city because it was in the late 90s, and it was the .com era. And so I got to experience that, and that was a blast. But I ultimately sort of realized I wasn't a white-collar guy. I didn't want a paper push, and I was finding that I was walking out of my office more stressed than I was going in. I said, okay, there's something wrong here. So I had sort of what I term an early life crisis. At 24 and a half, 25, I left San Francisco. I quit my MBA. I broke up with my girlfriend, and sort of found myself going, gosh, what am I going to do now? And I just knew that I wanted to make something. And so between that and my dad saying, you know, my back's hurting me, I don't want to get on the tractor anymore, why don't you farm the vineyards for a year? And so I farmed the vineyards for a year and brought the grapes down to Deloche. And that following year I picked up a couple other small little vineyards on our street. I guess the word was out from some of these old guys that there was a new kid back on the block. And so I was able to, the following year, farm enough where I could make a moderate living and then also make some homemade wine. And that's when little light bulbs turn on. It just sort of evolved from there. In 2002 was our first commercial vintage. That was a blast. I really had no idea what I was getting into. I just knew I wanted to make wine. I love the smell of it. I love the taste of it. Wine is this passion. And there's this sort of full circle lifestyle that is seasonal. So I know when I need to go to work, and I also know when I get to take time off for my family and take a little more time for myself. And it was just this sort of world that I was just so attracted to. Being able to take something my dad planted 40 years ago and take it to the next level, you know, it's just something that is just, it's pretty special.